Hey guys, Scott here. Going to switch into a bit of a positive note here. Today I want to talk about the one killer that I think Behaviour pretty much nailed in terms of reworks. They've done pretty decently with a lot of killers. I think, for example, like Leatherface, other than the ability, to face camp, was a pretty good rework overall. It made him much more enjoyable to play, although it didn't really fix the main issues. But the thing is, most killers, when they get a rework, the devs sort of miss the mark on why they're problematic for the game. Skull Merchant's the most recent example. The reworks they do are typically just simple number changes and things like that. They don't really ever address like core components of what makes the killer unfun or problematic for the game. Trickster's another example. Just removing a knife to damage somebody, that wasn't really the main issue. So they typically don't focus on what makes the killer not fun. They just sort of tweak some numbers and just kind of go from there. But every once in a while, they do a change to a killer that's actually really good. And I think Wraith is probably the best redesign that they've ever had. So early form of Wraith was rough. Wraith was extremely slow while he was cloaked. He was visible from across the entire map. You needed to use Windstorm to move faster. Then they changed Windstorm to affect the uncloak speed, like lunge that you would get. And then they did the big rework of Wraith. And so basically, they made Wraith move significantly faster by default. They made him way less add-on reliant because you needed certain add-ons in Wraith when he first came out, or you just were not ever really going to be downing people. And so they made a lot of things for Wraith base kit. They also made it so that outside of a certain range, he's now completely invisible. So even on big maps like Blood Lodge, you can still somewhat get close to people before they can react. And probably the thing I want to talk about most, and most importantly, because this is where they keep messing up over and over again, is the add-ons. The add-on redesign of Wraith was so good. The original add-ons for Wraith were not really great, and a lot of them were basically required, like Windstorm and stuff like that. But now Wraith, almost every single add-on that Wraith has is interesting and useful in some way, and that's so rare among killers. Like, if we look at every single add-on that Wraith has, I can't think of a single one. I'm going to go through every single one and think of it not being useful in some way. The Serpent, this is the one where you kick a pallet and you auto-uncloak. That's very useful if you combine it with Shadow Dance in certain loops. If you loop around it, you can get a hit from that really quickly. The Hound is probably one of the least useful ones, but it basically mimics the effect of, I guess, Bloodhound, where the blood is much more easy to see. The Ghost is kind of interesting. It's the one where you uncloak and the red stain that you have is not visible. Again, these are all brown add-ons that have, fairly minor effects, but they're not useless. They all do at the very least something. They're not just like, the clicker tongue from Nemesis where it's a green add-on that essentially does nothing. So even if they're not super effective, they still do something that's interesting, and it's not really like absolutely terrible. The Beast is the one meme add-on. Every killer's got a meme add-on. The speed limiter, they're called like speed limiter add-ons because they limit you. Basically, this makes it so you have a terror radius where invisible. Honestly, this thing is hilarious. I think for meme builds, this is one is top tier. You can absolutely confuse the hell out of people. And then we move on to the yellows. Bone Clapper makes all of the bell sounds global, so you can never tell if the wraith's actually uncloaking next to you. Makes people paranoid, makes them not really know if you're ever nearby. If they're on gens, they might actually panic and get off the gen if you're uncloaking, even though you're nowhere near them. Blink is just simple cloak time. It lets you do battle bong, which lets you bong the bell really fast, which is a crucial element. Windstorm is going to be always useful because it's just simply more movement speed while you're invisible. This will help you body block and things like that. Swift Hunt, again, always going to be usable. Uncloaking faster allows you to whip around loops a lot easier than if you didn't have that. Blind Warrior, when you uncloak, hit somebody, you apply blindness to them for a full minute. That can be great for stopping them from finding gens they may have highlighted, seeing which teammates are on hook, seeing teammates that are slugged. Aura reading blocking is pretty powerful in its own right, but it's tied to very kind of hard to apply methods, but this is a pretty easy one. And then we have the higher quality Windstorm and Swift Hunt, which are all going to be great. Shadow Dance is amazing. When you're cloaked, you break things way faster. Typically, it's combined with the Serpent to kick things and uncloak at the same time, and then you can get hits from that. Blink, again, is just the upgraded version of Blink. Blind Warrior applies Mangled and Hemorrhage, which means they're going to take longer to heal, and they're going to bleed more, which is incredibly useful, and that's all out of all hits. Then we got the upgraded Windstorm and Swift Hunt and Shadow Dance. Then we have All Seeing, which gives you amazing knowledge about any nearby survivor that could be trying to hide, like, in the tile that you're in. It lets you sort of counter mind games. If you're cloaking and recloaking in a loop, you can see if they're waiting at the corner, if they left. Extremely useful there. Coxcomb Clapper just completely silences your bell. It's amazing for ambushing people. And then All Seeing gives you amazing map knowledge by knowing which gens are being worked on, because you can see their auras based on how far they are progressed. So pretty much every single add-on that Wraith has is going to be, useful in some way. And that is so rare with modern killer design in DBD. Honestly, the base kit changes where he goes faster and, all that stuff. That's all great. And, the whole stealth and visibility from a distance thing, that's all great stuff. But the add-on design is really what I think is the most important thing to focus on, that they pretty much nailed every single add-on. And I wish killers were more like that, where they had add-ons that were not game-breaking, but they still had some type of benefit. So we have just stuff that changes the way you play. I always thought add-ons should be things that change how you play the game, but not give you an overwhelming advantage. I think the game would benefit from having less balance put on the add-ons, have add-ons across the board be weaker and killers be stronger base kit, for the ones that obviously need it. I think that's the correct way to do it, and I think Wraith pretty much nails that. They're all interesting, they're all useful, but they're not overpowered. It's perfect add-on design. And I think that's why Wraith had probably the best rework out of any killer in the entire game. That's why I love Wraith, and I'll continue to keep playing him, because he's honestly, especially right now with healing nerfs, is extremely strong. But that's it. Thanks for watching.